Friday night, March the 13th, and we are here to talk about um, football. Block 3 coming up, out of conference starting to close, so now we can start to get into the nitty-gritty and the conference races and see how things unfold. So we have Vic returning, and I hear that you had an eventful day today, sir. How are you?
Yeah, yeah. I I didn't know I was returning, but hey, hello. Uh, yeah, I was here last week. Yeah, yeah. I had a wedding to go to today, and I went to said wedding, and now I'm here. I feel like Kurt Herbstreit on game day sometimes when he got to get off the set and travel to the game, and they be having a camera follow him on the motorcycle and on the airplane and all that. That's how I felt today. I was like, yeah, I gotta knock this wedding out and then get back in time for the pod. So I'm here. I'm here. Wedding was a good time. It was a friend of mine, and he tied the knot, and it was a good celebration.
That's all you can ask for. Good stuff. Well, yes, you're right. Returning should be more uh fitting for Doc because Doc is back this week after taking a short break off. Doc, how are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm trying to stay on my wife's good side, so not arguing about things anymore that she needs me to do.
The old saying, happy wife, happy life, right?
That's it.
Oh yeah.
That's it.
So Vic, I saw something in the chat earlier today that made me laugh, and I will actually read it to you because it makes me think of what Doc brought up, and this makes me laugh. So Pat was trying to play a cup game against Ball State, and he asked him if he'd be able to play tonight earlier in the earlier on this month, and he's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm watching the sunset with my girl. Maybe later, but no promises. It just made us laugh. It was like, yeah, like it's funny because you always think of like the flip side of that. If I can scroll down, I can't see who it was. I didn't have that one ready, but he said that, and there's another vet that's like, yeah, but then on the flip side, I have my wife mad at me because, oh, you're not spending time with me. I can't remember who said it. It's like, yeah, it's my third night in a row playing a game, and I can't play because my wife is mad at me for not spending more time with her. So like, you lose either way. But happy wife, happy life.
Definitely. You
That's
That's the
it.
definitely
priority.
lose either way.
Like I am not married, but I have been around enough married people to know that is a
Same.
very positive way to live.
Same. And I seen a happy new wife tonight. So yeah, definitely got to make her happy. And how the wedding looked, she definitely had her hands in a lot of it.
Yep, just say yes.
Just say yes and pay for it. Yep.
Yep. Well, let's talk some football, guys. We can start with the top 25. A few less teams in it this time around from the last poll result. You had Washington State as the top team in the G5 at 18. South Florida dropping to 23. No, a painful loss, but also a, depending on what side of you're on, a happy win or a painful loss. With Penn State. And then on the outside looking in, you had Florida International. They dropped out, but sitting right there on the cusp of it at 26, and then Boise at 30. So I ask you, Doc, I'll come to you first. Do you feel that top 25 is good in terms of G5? And is there anyone missing on the radar in your opinion?
Um, I think, I mean, like with the new poll, I think Hawaii's missing. I think they'll be on there. But as far as this one goes, the last poll, I think Boise, I feel like should have been a little bit higher. But other than that, there is an agreement with that.
All right, Vic, how about you?
I agree. Hawaii is the missing link. Maybe San Jose State, but Hawaii is definitely the missing team. And ULM.
Yeah.
I expect. I definitely expect ULM to be in the top 25 this go around. So
All right, well, I have a slight issue with the top 25 for me, but I know it's just a difference of opinion and how I go about doing my polls, how some others do. Oh, well, especially now that the blocks are closed after 2 weeks, I'm a little more lenient on being, essentially being behind because you have 2 weeks to play the game versus one. It'd be nice if you could play them during the first week. So for me personally, FIU, I know they've only played one game. We'll have to see if simming will impact the schedule for the deadline for block one. But I'm not as ready to drop Florida International out yet. So I still would have them at the bottom of my top 25 for now. But I'm not disappointed with them being at 26. It's like you're really right there. You're just on the other side of the line. But for me, one team that I have on the radar, I'm surprised that they haven't been mentioned would be James Madison. I mean, the big win, I know we'll have to see at the end of the season what that South Florida win looks like. And I know that's not going to count towards this poll, or it's not counting on this poll, but for him to be a returning runner-up in the conference and start out undefeated, kind of flying under the radar some. I just not as high up as in the eyes of some as I thought he might be. I think that'll probably change going forward with the win against El Jefe, but I was kind of surprised to not really hear any mentions of James Madison. Apparently, I can't talk. I'm struggling. Sorry. Um, so with that said, we can close the topic on the top 25. We can talk about some of the results in Block 2. And speaking of James Madison, I guess we can just kind of just start right there. That was a big game, week 3, South Florida on the road against James Madison, one of the big, well, at least on in terms of on paper going into the season, one of the big G5 matchups that we were looking forward to, and it definitely lived up to it because it was a high scoring game. There's a lot of back and forth. 38-35 was the final score. I think it was a big statement win for James Madison, just kind of putting their stamp on, hey, acknowledge us, Roman Reigns style, acknowledge me type thing. We're here. We're not going away. Especially after having to deal. It's really weird when you see a lot of points, you tend to think passing, but the run games for those running backs was something else. The quote unquote Mafa for South Florida, 258 yards with 2 touchdowns. I saw many broken tackles, and it's making me have those Clemson flashbacks. So I'm sure Glizzy probably felt the same way trying to defend him. But the 3 interceptions by Brown definitely didn't do South Florida any favors. And I do think that is a pretty big win for James Madison, especially when it looked like South Florida was going to take control going into the last 3 minutes of the first half, and James Madison flipped the script. So, Vic, I'll come to you first. This win for James Madison, what do you think it says for that program? How does it impact South Florida? And where are we going with those two teams from here?
it's a big impact for James Madison. They are still undefeated. Coming up on conference play, coming up on this next block. Um, I like the back and forth game that they had. Like we did say in the beginning in the preview episode that this is probably Blizzy's time if he's gonna have a shot at the playoff or have a shot at the conference title win. Then this is the shot, and he's taking full advantage of it. Now with USF, they definitely, fall to 1-3 and it's tough sledding from here on out. Yeah, they have that win against Penn State at Penn State, but they didn't do enough outside of that one win to justify even having a possible CFP slot if they run the table. But I don't even know if they're even running the table at this point. So it's back to the drawing board for Byron Brown and Isaac and the rest of the gang there in Tampa. Hopefully, Coach Hefe will bounce back and get some wins on the board this season.
All right, Doc, I'll come to you with the same. The impact of this game directly for both teams, and where do you see both teams going from here?
I mean, I think James Madison's going to win that conference. I mean, the way, even though he gave up all those yards rushing, he still played, pretty good defense. He held South Florida for 2 third down conversions out of 7. And he held the ball for almost 5 minutes more. So in a 3-point game, those two areas are pretty key. And to beat a good coach, Glizzy just looks more and more like the team to beat than he did at the beginning of the year for me.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I think last week we were talking about, hey, can South Florida find a way to, if obviously winning both games in block two would be huge, but can you're at least going to have to beat James Madison, because if we get to a point where the records are close, maybe that head to head may play a factor in. But to not be able to get that one, it's so tough because you feel so happy after seeing a win on the road against Penn State, but then out of conference just turns into a disaster completely after that because you finished 1-3. You weren't able to get another win out of conference. So you get a nice win. Obviously, we'll have to see what Penn State looks like going forward. But two tough losses in the SEC and then losing to a G5 team that's more on your level, and that would be in that conversation potentially for a CFP bid. I I don't want to say it's over, but I just never pictured a scenario where I could see a three-loss G5 team be able to make CFP. Now, it doesn't mean that El Jefe season is done, because there's still a lot that can be done. Can win the conference, can still have a great season by going 9-3, and that could mean great things going forward, whether he stays or looking forward to season 36. But James Madison definitely has everyone's attention now if they didn't before. That is a good win against a coach that is, multi-time participant in the CFP. And now going into conference play, you just have to be focused. You took care of business out of conference. We'll talk about what's ahead for them a little bit later on, but I think that that's definitely a big win. And now we'll have to see what they'll do with the spotlight on them going forward, because I think that they're going to be one of those teams that was going to be followed closely as we start to get into conference play. And we're going to stay with Sunbelt because we have one of their foes who also had a game, an important game in the second block, Georgia Southern at Virginia. Tough one, a tough start at least for Georgia Southern. They're down 21-0 at the half. They're able to rally in the second half, but they end up losing by a touchdown on the road. So that is Georgia Southern's first loss of the season. Vic, how do you feel about Georgia Southern? Or should I say, how your feelings change about Georgia Southern after that loss?
Uh, they they don't really change per se. It was his Power Four game against Virginia. He did battle back. He did make a game out of it in the end, but I mean, it's pretty hard when you're down 21-0 to come back. But he almost did. but it doesn't change much. He's going to be a factor in the Sun Belt regardless, and definitely is going to challenge James Madison and Southern Miss and ULM, which we're going to talk about a little later. So it looked like a four man race there for the Sun Belt Fun Belt title. So it's truly indeed the Fun Belt. That's just another team to add to the mix in the Fun Belt right there. Georgia Southern, James Madison, ULM, Southern Miss, like that. It's pretty tough in that. It's pretty tough in that conference.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to shape up that way. Doc, have your opinions changed at Georgia Southern after that game?
I don't think so. I think that he is in a. I mean, he's in a good spot. It was a bad offensive game for him, and I don't foresee him to have many of those. So, he only had what 70 yards rushing, but 20, minus 22 of that was from his quarterback. So, like, normally he has a good running game with them. I think nothing changes for him. Virginia's obviously the better team. It was at Virginia. And to still come out of there at 28-21 and, being down, I think that really that says more than anything for Georgia Southern and what they won't do, and that's quit.
I could definitely agree with you on that point because being down 21-0 and on the road, you're not going to probably see a HFA like that in the Sun Belt. So dealing with that, finding yourself down, momentum is in favor of Virginia, and to say, okay, look, guys, all we got to do is get on the board. You get that first touchdown. Okay, all we got to do is get the ball back. Let's go score again. And to find yourself to, get back into that game, character, good character. And that lets you know that no lead is going to be safe against them. And they're able to adapt. You mentioned the run game has been successful for them so far this season. It wasn't necessarily in this game, but hey, we can find a way to pass the ball, be able to move the ball, and still generate points. So showing another dimension to the team. It does suck it always is, a bad thing to take a loss, but you got to look at the context of it. And I think being down the way they were down in the fight back and to be able to be in the game at the end, I think is really important. And they are going to be a tough out in the Sun Belt. It's going to be fun to watch. And then an interesting one, because I will admit, the reason I found out about this game is because someone DM'd me. I believe I was at my parents' house during this game, and I had to stop what I was doing to sneak away. Alabama at Central Michigan. I came into this game late, and I was shocked when I saw the score, and I was even more shocked when I saw Central Michigan take the lead, almost midway through the fourth quarter. I'm like, I can't believe this is going to happen. Like, that's all I was thinking about. They go up with that score, and then I don't know, maybe I was bad luck just when I tuned in. You have special teams jump in. You have Miller with a big run after a really big fourth down stop for the Bama defense. And you look at the score and see Bama wins on the road 39-28. But if you were watching that game, you definitely were feeling in the fourth quarter. I think Chip is going to do this. I think Central Michigan is going to find a way to get a huge upset win. Vic, did you get to see the whole game? And what are your thoughts on what you saw?
No, I didn't get to see the whole game because the first part of it was played while I was at work. I did get tagged in this game. It was like, oh, you need to get in here. By the time I got tagged, I was watching because I was on my way home and I was listening, not really watching, but listening to it. And I was definitely shocked that CMU was up. Chip study proves he always proves why he's on the Mount Rushmore of G5. Like, and this is a part of the lore when it comes to Chip. I did watch most of the second half. and especially that fourth quarter where he had scored. Then the kick return of death happened to him as always, and then he battled back and dropped the pass on fourth down and couldn't recover after that. But it definitely was a close game, and Chip definitely could have pulled off the upset. The run game was working perfectly well, especially in the second half. Like he could get 5, 6, 7 yard runs at a time. The passing game was to be desired, but it is against Alabama, so you can expect that against Alabama. Like your passing game isn't going to be what it's going to be against other teams, especially other teams in the MAC. So it was pretty surprising, but one of these days, Chip is gonna knock off one of these SEC teams. I can just see it. I can see it.
Oh, I'm not. I already got to play Chip in the cup, so I can attest to that. Doc, what were your thoughts on the game?
I didn't get to see this one, but from what I got out of it, I think that you know Chip's going to be a player either way. Um, you know, you lose in the end of the game on some stuff that you probably, you know, kick return and interceptions kind of lose it for you. So you kind of have to fight back. But you're playing Alabama and you lose by 11. I think you're okay. You know, I think you'll be okay. And will you probably get your playoff spot? I don't know, but you're going to definitely win the MAC. But with teams like James Madison coming around and that got some they're looking to get some wins. ULM maybe, so there's going to be some teams I think that will stretch him, but I mean he's going to win the MAC for sure.
Yeah, I came out of the game with two thoughts. One was, and it's something that it just was reinforced in this game. And I know this is probably going to sound weird to people listening, but if you watch Chip play, you'll probably understand. Of every game that I have played on College Football 26, no offensive rushing attack has given me more frustration than Central Michigan's because Chip does a really good job of just taking what's there, and he does a good job of being able to scheme, as Vic said, those 5 and 6 yard runs because it forces you to do one of two things. Either one, you get frustrated and you try to bring extra guys, and that can be a bad thing if you're overloading the front end. It creates a lane to get through. That 5 yard run turns into a 14 yard run or a 27 yard run. It just eats away at the defense. He's patiently just walking his way down the field. He has complete control of what he's doing, and ultimately, he's getting you in those third and shorts where you have to make those decisions. Are we going to sell out to try to stop the run? Well, there comes that play action rollout. There comes that short pass. You don't have any help on the backside because you're trying to stop the run. Or hey, we're going to try and sit back and drop 7, drop 8. That offensive line, your sixth lineman essentially with the tight end, they're going to create a hole for that running back to find his way for a first down. To do it against Bama was just I have to say I was shocked because I ended up having to put that game on a bigger screen. Like I can't watch this on my phone. I need to see this on something bigger. Like, it was very shocking. The play at the line of scrimmage by Central Michigan against Bama, impressive. That's the only thing I can say, impressive. And knowing what lies ahead on the MAC schedule and then still out of conference, I will be curious to see how he finishes out of conference. But if that offensive line and that rushing attack can continue to do what he's been able to do for the last couple of seasons, for sure, he is going to be in the running at the end of the season for the MAC. And we'll have to see what the landscape looks like around the rest of the G5. He just missed out last year. And if he's doing that against Bama, man, it's going to be really hard to bet against them in any other regular season game this season, to be honest. So it's one of those losses. It hurts to lose, but when you have the context and you saw what you saw, like it still feels like a it's an L in the loss column, but it feels like a W in terms of the game that you saw played by Central Michigan. I feel like that's the best way I can put it. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but it felt like you played a great game. It's like a more of a net positive, even though I know like you got to win the game, but man, it still felt like that was a that in performance was a winning performance by Central Michigan. It just didn't result in a win in the win loss column.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I agree about that.
Well, this is going to be a little bit awkward because I can't access the NDL site right now. So, I know that Temple lost to Northern Illinois, but apparently I forgot to put how many points Northern Illinois had in that game, and I'm over here like scrambling in Discord trying to see what the final score was. Um, but I'm going to assume it was 31-21, looking at the notes because I believe they were tied at the end of the third quarter. As a matter of fact, they're tied at the end of every quarter, but they won the fourth quarter 10-0. So yeah, context clues for the win. Northern Illinois beats Temple 31-21. Man, I'm having a rough a rough last couple of days, let me tell you. Temple loses. That gives them their first loss of the season. Northern Illinois, no, closing the game strong. Vic, I'll come to you first. What were your thoughts on how this game played out at the end?
I believe the final score was I think 31-21, I believe. Or 28-21, one of the two. Uh I watched a lot of this game. Oh, I watched a lot of this game, and and it was a back and forth. At first, I thought it was gonna be a shootout, but then it turned defensive. Like it was like 21-21 for a long time. Well, 14-14 for from first quarter to like third quarter. It was like as soon as they got to 14, they pretty much shut it down and played a defensive battle. And then back and forth with the 21-21. And then Northern Illinois pulled away late. And it was because of some defensive stops and I believe an interception that did in Temple to have their first loss. But uh, a shootout turned defensive. If you want to put it in context, a shootout that turned defensive, and it was well played. Like it was some good defense on both sides, especially for a G5 game. It was definitely a good defensive battle in the middle part of the game. Tough loss for Temple. They was looking to go 4-0, but going into conference play. But sometimes, sometimes games happen to you. You let one slip away, and he did let that slip away. But he is 3-1 and on pace to be a sleeper, definitely in the American, especially after some slow starts in that conference. He's looking to definitely try to be in that top tier of the conference.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Doc, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Vic on this one. I think he's going to be a player, and I think defensively the game was, you know, like you said, you, it's a high scoring game, but it's still defensive to where you're just matching each other. And then in the fourth quarter, you know, the home field advantage can take over a little bit. You get a stop where a stop is needed, and that changes the whole outcome of the game. But I still think the Temple is going to be the team that is going to stick out in kind of an ugly right now American for some of these teams that we all thought were going to really do what they needed to do to win this. Nobody's really stepping out and going, we're the team. So I think Temple, as long as they keep winning, they may be the team.
Yeah, it's interesting because I look at Northern Illinois, and I don't know if you remember Doc, but he was in at the end of the first run of the NDL,
Yep.
and he finished strong. And now he's coming back and just like kind of getting his feet back under him playing the game. So I'm kind of curious to see how he does for the rest of the season. I didn't get to see much of him before we had the hiatus, but I can see, with his coach history, he had a strong couple of seasons. So I wonder if he'll be able to get back to that form. Definitely an impressive win, and I do like the description, Vic. I love defensive games, and we don't really get a lot of them on this game cycle because it like most of the games tend to be the race to 30, the race to 40, in some cases 50. And to see them be able to just go the defenses be able to go blow for pretty much an entire half was kind of cool to watch. I got to see a chunk of this game. It's like, man, the defenses are stepping up and like field position is starting to be a thing. Like, okay, a good punt here. And we got to try to get a first down just to try to get the field position back in our favor. It was nice to see that chess match back and forth. But Northern Illinois is strong fourth quarter. They get the win. And Temple definitely, the way they've looked so far this season, disappointing, of course, always to lose, but 3-1, definitely not a bad way to start the season. Now you're going into conference play to finish things out, and now you can just focus on the teams there. Whereas in Northern Illinois, they're sitting at 2-0. Has Twisted found the fountain of youth back from his last run? We'll have to see, but definitely a nice win there, especially when things are tied going into the fourth quarter. But not all games, as I've mentioned, are low scoring games or defensive games because we tend to see 40s and 50s a lot. And we saw a 50 burger in one of these games here. Week 4, the battle for Georgia minus the Bulldogs. Georgia Tech hosting Georgia State, and State with a very impressive second half. They win 55-21 overall, but in the second half, outscored the Jackets 34-7, and that's on the road. Oh, how impressed, Vic, are you by this Georgia State win?
Very impressed. We talked about Georgia State in the draft and how non-efficient their offensive line is, but they played pretty efficient this game. I mean, they definitely whooped Georgia Tech's ass. I'd say that. They dominated 34-7 in the second half, and a lot of that was due to the offensive line holding steady against the defensive line of Georgia Tech. That offensive line didn't look insufficient at all. So, um, shout out to the coach at Georgia State. I'm blanking on the name right now, but he definitely outplayed Georgia Tech and got the upset win.
It's Coach Jack B because it's one of the few tabs that I have that's open. I definitely can't close any of the open tabs I have now, otherwise I'm gone. So Coach Jack B, and that puts him at 2-2 on the season. Doc, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Georgia Southern, or Georgia State, sorry. He threw for 256 yards and 5 touchdowns. Hurst pulled in 116 yards and a touchdown, and Simmons ran for 159 and 2, which really all of that offense surprises me against the Georgia Tech defense. So um, I'm curious to see, because I don't know much about this coach, so I'm curious to see how he moves forward in the rest of this season.
Yeah, I'm just I know I have the memory of it's a different coach. It's Maros is coaching Georgia Tech, and I haven't seen enough of Maros's gameplay to get like a clear picture of know what he's done in the NDL as a coach. But I know what I saw with Georgia Tech last season under Steam, and Steam was one of those teams that was on the outside looking in for the CFP, still had a really, really solid season. And man, I just in a close game, you go into the half and you're just thinking, okay, Georgia Tech's a more talented team and they're at home. They'll get it together and they'll get stuff going. And Georgia State just said no. And the trench play, again, they won in the trenches. You're able to get the run game going to get time for your quarterback. It's putting the pressure on the other team. Are you just gonna, empty it out and just throw everybody out there and potentially get sack, fumble? It just makes it really difficult when you're not able to win in the trenches. And to see Georgia State take control in that area of the game was definitely a shock to me. And they were able to take advantage of that and roll through the second half to get the win. And now they're going to turn their attention to conference play as well. So another big victory for the Sun Belt against Power Four teams. It seems to be something that, well, just Sun Belt wins against other teams seems to be something that's been happening a lot this season. We'll get to that later, but in a very impressive half to finish out that game. Vic, I'll let you talk about this one because you got to see this one more up close and personal than me because I was fighting for my life at this time. So,
You were playing at the time. You were playing at the time, and hopefully y'all back me up on the next one because I did not, unfortunately, get to see that one. But this one, we have ULM 38-35. ULM played a well executed game throughout. Um, this is Coach Jared Allen, and not the Hall of Famer Jared Allen, but Coach Jared Allen. Second P4 win, he beat North Carolina in block one, beating Arkansas here this block. So that's two Power Four victories. The most impressive start for G5 so far this season with two Power Four victories. So, and if he does come down to it in the end, those two victories do look very impressive. Because you got to win your Power Four games for sure. The talk about the game itself was a back and forth to a T, but you can tell that as we learned from the hot route that Coach Jared Allen is actually a real life coach. You can tell his real life coaching skills came into play here because he got the ball, went up 7-0, forced the punt, got up, had a long drive to go up 14-0. Um, and then right back he had the kick return of death. We hate the kick return of death. And it was 14-7. And then after that, he had an extremely long drive. So at that point, he knew after the kick return of death that he needed to take the air out the ball. And that's exactly what he did for the rest of the game. Extra long drive, made it 21-7. Arkansas come back one play after the kickoff. Taylor Green runs for about 75 yards, scores 14 points, and it was basically a back and forth after that. Arkansas did have more actual lengthy drives after that, especially in the second half. But ULM basically took the air out the ball, especially at the end. Arkansas was able to use all their timeouts, and he was still able to get the first down to go ahead and kick the field goal. It was almost a little controversy with the fourth down rule, but as stated, the fourth down rule was not violated at all, and so no controversy at all. He won that, fair and square. No rule breaks, no none of that. Um, it was pointed out in the live chat, and we went ahead and went with it at that point because we're just watching the game. We wasn't looking back on it then, but once we looked back on it, we saw that he did not break any rules and definitely got the win. So my question to you guys is, how do you feel about Coach Jared Allen and ULM as a team? And what are your thoughts on the game?
I thought he played the way he needed to play to win that game. And, being able to just have a balanced offense and just being able to control that clock the way he needed to against Arkansas and getting these big wins. I I think he's going to be a hard beat here in the G5 for sure. Without even like just for the games that he has played, he's played them really well, and like you said, he plays them as a coach because he is a coach, and that's a big 2 big wins to push him in the season and getting him to where he needs to be for the rest of the season because those are some big wins. So shout out to him, man.
Yeah, I'm impressed for two reasons. One, I think it's kind of lost sometimes when you get into these high scoring games. The instinct is, hey, I have to match, I have to match, I have to keep up. And to be able to find a way to run the ball and just kind of slow things down, especially when you're the team with the lesser talent. Do you really want to try to, outscore a team and race to 50 points when they have more speed and they have the better players? Or do you want to say, hey, let's try to limit the possession some? Yes, that might make third down a little scary at times, but hey, if we can get ourselves in a situation where we can be in third and short and kind of dictate terms to the defense, it slows the game down, lessens the possessions, and it makes those possessions more meaningful. So then the focus is, hey, when we have the ball, we got to take care of business. We got to finish those drives and points. You wonder how the other coach is going to react because the onus isn't on you. The onus is going to be on the other coach, right? And it's there's times where you can see mistakes made because like, hey, like I'm in a position where I have the better team. You may take more, you may not just, simplify the game so much as like, hey, we're just gonna let the talent win. And it could be a fumble, it could be an errant throw, an interception, just, something that happens that short circuits that drive. It's different when you have 5 possessions versus when you have 8 or 9 possessions because that doesn't matter as much. You're going to have many more opportunities to make things happen. When you have fewer possessions, those things matter a bit more. And Jared has so far in the games I've seen him play, he's been able to find ways to keep himself in the game and be able to adapt to maybe make changes. I feel like you have kind of that Bill Belichick mindset of, man, I'm struggling stopping the run. So we're going to do this to help us stay in the game. We can't get the pass game going. So we're going to use the run to force the defense to adjust to open up lanes for the passing game. And he's been able to do that both in the cup and in the regular season. So I'm really curious to see how things will look for him when he gets in the conference play. I think that's something that kind of gets forgotten about sometimes, just the adaptability of you go in with a with a game plan. I feel like most of us do, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Like I think this is the path to how I can win this game. And when you see that, man, maybe this isn't the best way, do you double down or do you reverse course and try to find another way to get to the finish line? And from what I've seen from him so far, he's on that second path, and that second path definitely makes it a bit easier just to get in the game when you get to the final couple of minutes. So that's all you really want. Just don't let yourself get played out of the game. Just keep it close, give yourself a chance. And if you have a chance, just make the plays at the end. That's all you have to do to win impressive. And given the teams in the Sun Belt, it's going to be really interesting to see how he fares against some of those coaches there. I'm excited to see. And then lastly, we're going to go to the flip side. We're going to go to those, that 1960, 1970s style of football, or even me as a Buck fan, the early 90s, just run the ball. We don't need to pass. What do you pass the ball for? You don't need points. Run and punt. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. A low scoring game between North Texas and Army. I know that's one of the games that we had talked about last episode. Army was looking good. First half, they were up 16-3. and the run game, the offense doing what it needed to do in that first half. But North Texas answers in half number two. You get two touchdowns in the second half, and then the defense able to seal the deal with an interception late to hold on for the win. Oh, the final score 17-16. Doc, I'll come to you first. Drew gets the win. It's a 1 point game, and just not a lot of points scored. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on the result?
I think when you get into a game like that where there's not a ton of points to be scored, I think that's Drew's game, right? Like he's just that type of coach that is going to have the opportunity to if you're going to keep him close, he has a good chance of winning that game. You know, his with his play style. So I think towards the end in the second half, this is really fell into his hands, and Army just couldn't do it. Couldn't stop him. Couldn't figure it out on how to close it out.
Vic, what are your thoughts? I know you're a big fan of
Well,
Drew at North Texas.
definitely a big fan of Drew. He definitely pulled it out. Uh, I wasn't able to watch it. I'm sad I wasn't able to watch it. Um, he did come back in the clutch. That's the way to go. You know, coming back down from 16-3 at the half, definitely clinched it. Like you said, I remember you said this last week when we was previewing the game, and we was like, um, they was just like, we was just like, he's played option teams, those option teams, plenty of times, being an American, and this is what we said came into play in that second half. Him knowing those option teams very well, he was able to key in defensively and get stops, and was able to go ahead and make the offense go in the second half. So uh, kudos to him. Kudos to him to getting his first win, and hopefully there'll be many more wins to go for Drew.
It was a fun watch all around. I like defensive football, so to see the back and forth, I enjoyed it. And also, I thought it was interesting because I would definitely can admit I was wrong. I thought this was a situation that would be worst case scenario that would lead to a loss, and you said it actually may have helped play to his advantage. I know if I'm in that situation and I'm behind and I have to deal with that type of offense, regardless of how I was playing earlier in the game, it starts to wear on you a little bit more because the emphasis, like, man, I'm behind. I have to get stops now. Like, I have to get off the field. I can't slow you down. I have to get off the field because I need to get the ball back. So the pressure defensively to be able to find a way to slow down that offense, especially when it had success in the first half, to pitch a shutout in the second half really big by North Texas, a big win for them on the road as they start to settle into conference play. Um, Good game by both coaches, and hopefully we'll get to see a rematch between the two of them maybe next season or going forward in the future. I thought it was a really fun game to watch. So now we'll shift to just looking at the G5 as a whole. And I think there's two things that really stand out. One is looking at how things looked in the preseason. There were definitely a couple of schools that we were very high on, and I think you have to pick someone, right? And you felt confident in the picks that you had. I'm tending to be wrong a lot as I'm finding out on NDL Sharp and USF and UTSA. I did not. If you had told me that both teams would be coming out of this block sub 500, I definitely would not have believed you. I know USF would have had it tough, with the Power Four teams on the schedule, but I've seen El Jefe play enough, and I know that USF has talent. I did not see a 1-3 start for him. Mike at UTSA, I know he's having to learn the team, and we talk about it a lot on this show that the Power Four teams play differently. Like a game of a Power Four team and a Power Four team, reasonably match is going to be different against a G5 team that's in that same situation. Speed being a factor, size, strength, trenches being a factor. I did not have him starting out at 0-3 either. And I know they're just kind of sneaking in and catching strays that probably they didn't mean to catch, but Tulane was a team that I was definitely watching. I thought they have, and it's not to say that any of these seasons are over. I'll get to that in a sec, but Tulane starting 0-3, especially after that really close game against Rutgers early on, thought like, okay, man, that's a tough loss, but they're going to get it together, move forward, and they'll grow from this. And then they find themselves 0-3. So you got three teams in the American, which has been a conference that in seasons past has put together groups of coaches that have been atop the conference and battling it out, and then also being in the conversation for a potential G5 bid. It opens the door for some new things potentially, because what's going on in the Sun Belt and what's going on across the G5 landscape. So I'll come to you first, Doc. In terms of maybe some of your preseason predictions, are you surprised by some of the slow starts and just looking at the G5 as a whole, the landscape now as opposed to 2 weeks ago? What are your thoughts?
Um, I'm totally surprised by UTSA's 0-3 start. I'm not so surprised by USF's 1-3 start, but I am really surprised that Tulane is 0-3. I think as far as the G5 goes, I think it's the two people that I think we all consider to be the guys at the top, UTSA and USF. Um, it's now wide open, you know, because with three losses and a G5, you're not making any bids. So does that open teams ULM, Southern Miss, Georgia Southern? Does it open these teams up for being the team that comes and represents the G5? I think it
Yeah.
does.
Yes.
So that is but I'm really surprised that I thought Tulane would be at least, I mean, at worst 2-1, right? Um but I thought for sure, I didn't think they would be 0-3.
Yeah, these teams being what a combined oh, ooh. A combined what 1-9, I believe, or two and
Yeah,
nine.
1-9.
1-9.
That is how 1-9.
Yep.
That is that was the shocker of the year because I'll say it like this: we were looking at that at how the draft was going, and we were looking at maybe this is the possible year of the G5, or the year we possibly see a G5 get out of the 12 spot. Hell yeah, 2 blocks in, that ain't happening. Um, so now we have to change. We have to turn the page because those teams are basically out of contention when it comes to the CFP. No matter what, like Doc said, 3 losses as a G5, that ain't happening. So they just have to look forward to their conference schedule, have fun. Now the pressure is off though. You have to think of it as a double-edged sword. Yes, you're out of it. You're not gonna make the playoff, all that good stuff. But now you look at it as, hey, I can just have fun in conference, win all my conference games, win the conference, and hopefully turn that into a good pick next season, before the next game, or after the next game comes out. And, hopefully I have a team that I like and that I can do work with next year. Hopefully they can all turn this into a positive and make it better for them next season. I think USF and Tulane may have a problem with that because I think their win goals is about 8 or 9. So that may be a little difficult there. They would have to completely run the table, but they made their schedules hard. So It's probably looking like a 8 win goal for both of those. So we do have to turn the page though to the James Madisons, the ULMs, the Hawaiis of the world, and see if they can Boise and see San Jose State stuff like that to see if they can contend for the CFP berth.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think probably to me the most surprising thing is, you know, I've seen Mike. Well, I can't say I've seen him play a lot. 'Cause, we didn't have streaming back then, but Mike has played a lot. He's played a lot of big games. I think probably the thing that surprised me the most about this season is watching him be in games, but it's like there's just something missing. Just can't. I don't know how. I don't know if I can put my finger on it. It's like I just expect if Mike is in a close game that he's going to win somehow, whether it's the offense, whether it's the defense, the special teams play, something that he's going to be able to find a way to pull it out. I'm just so used to seeing that because that's what we've seen for so long. El Jefe, these are coaches that have been in the CFP, and I know that they're taking a new team, so it is a challenge trying to maybe figure out a new team on the fly. But it hurts when you're in games and you can say, "Man, I almost had it," but almost and a loss don't go well together in this scenario, especially when the losses are stacking up early. So now it's still going to make for a very interesting conference race in the American. I think as they start to figure out their teams more going into the season, I think we'll see the best of them for sure, 2, 3 weeks from now. But it is, I was definitely hoping that they would be able to get off to better starts to, kind of keep themselves in contention in the big picture going into conference play. But it makes for some excitement for sure going into the next handful of blocks because now you look at the Mountain West. You got teams atop the Mountain West that are like, okay, the spotlight is on you guys. The Sun Belt, the spotlight is on you guys. Chip, Northern Illinois, the spotlight's on you. Florida International, we'll have to see. No, it's still maybe a little too early to fully get a full picture of them, but maybe in 2 weeks we'll have a better idea. They could still be in the running. It just really opens up the field and it's gonna do two things. One, it's going to make it very interesting to talk about for sure because there's going to be so many teams that can throw their hat in and say, "Hey, why not us?" But it's going to make for some very important games down the stretch. So we'll see the teams playing at their best with that pressure on. How do you respond to the pressure? So I think it'll make G5 football for sure fun going forward into the next couple of blocks around outside of the American around to these other conferences. But there is one conference that I do have to say has definitely caught the eyes of me and maybe some others in the live chat too. I don't know if you guys know, but I like to go kind of snooping around in other conferences just to see what they have going on in there, what kind of stuff they're talking about, see the camaraderie, everyone rooting for each other, not a conference play before they're, trying to beat their ass when they play against each other. The Sun Belt has kind of stood out. I don't know if you guys saw the graphic, but Mr. Razorback, who is the commissioner of the Sun Belt, getting some eyes and well-deserved eyes on their conference. I have to scroll back here. Earlier this week, you look at the out-of-conference records. So I'm just going to read them off to you guys. You have the SEC. Yes, the SEC is great. 32-8. There's some good coaches up at the top that it's a top-heavy conference. There's some really good coaches up there that are carrying that 32-8. Then you have the ACC, which is 21-16. Okay, you got the Big 12 at 17-13. And then you have the Sun Belt at 16-10. And I don't say that in a bad way. I was really surprised when I saw this graphic. But then you look at everyone else. The Big 10, sub 500 in conference play. The Mountain West, sub 500. Matter of fact, every other conference, if you want to say the Pac-2, it's just two teams or 3-0, like every game is out of conference for them. And then the independents, Notre Dame, UConn, kind of the same thing. They're at 3-2. Pac-2's at 3-0. But the big conferences, the Sun Belt is right up there, showing that they belong. How do you guys feel about this? Razorbacks talking about, hey, we might have to have a Power Five conversation with the way the Sun Belt's looking right now. I have to say, looking across the board and being able to catch a lot of the Sun Belt games, because I kind of saw where chat was going before this graphic got posted. I have to say, I'm very impressed. And it's not just one team. Collectively, these guys in conference, not only have they been able to play well and represent it, whether it's a win or a loss. The games are really, really competitive, and this group of coaches is showing that they belong. Vic, I'll come to you first. What are your thoughts? Sunbelt's looking pretty good.
Sunbelt is looking pretty good. I may want to hold on the Power Five thing, but Sunbelt is looking good. They do have wins across the board against all the different Power Four conferences, so that is good. They are basically they could be now if you guys out there, you people that's listening in out there, if you are a person that was in the league a few years ago, we had a awesome conference in the American. Season 32, I believe. Yeah, season 32. We had an awesome conference in the American where it was like a 4 or 5 man race to see who's gonna take those 2 spots in the conference championship. And we had a bunch of ranked teams in the end. We had like 4 ranked teams at one point from the American at the same time. It was Charlotte, it was Memphis, it was Tulane, it was Florida Atlantic. It was it was Tulsa for a little bit, then they dropped out, but and then it became a 4 man race, but and then it sorted itself out, of course, because they all played each other. But it was a pretty tough conference. It was like the toughest conference outside of the SEC, of course, in the whole NDL that season, and that's what it's looking like here for the Sun Belt. It's looking like a 3 to 4 team race. They all look like they're gonna play each other to settle the score there and settle the tiebreakers, but it is looking like the best G5 conference this season. Now, I will say that it is so far looking like the best G5 conference.
Mr. Doc, from
You,
what you're
you
seeing
know,
so far, your thoughts?
I think does this become a league that just implodes on themselves because they have good coaches, and does it ruin their shots because somebody is going to end up beating somebody, and there's nobody that's going to come out of this
Well,
any better than they should?
somebody's gonna rise. Like what happened in season 32, Florida Atlantic rose above it all and became the G5 representative. Um, so someone's gonna rise above it all. We just have
Well,
to
no,
find
yeah,
out.
of course, somebody always does, but is it going to be the team that we think it is, or is it going to be somebody that sneaks in who upsets one of these teams and plays pretty well? It's for me, the Sun Belt's going to be an interesting conference to watch.
Yeah, I'm curious, going with your line of thinking, Doc, because once like they as a whole as a conference they've looked really good in out of conference play. And now as they start to play each other, as the playing field starts to level out, I'm curious to see how it looks. I mean, you still have Glizzy, who's at James Madison, who knows his team really well. He's there for another season. So yeah, MGR has he's had a couple of games now, a group of games with Georgia Southern. You've got Coach Jared. He's had a couple games with UL Monroe. Jackby with Georgia State. Southern Miss, a Big Brian. Like they're still going to have to work through some kinks, and like they've hopefully, from their perspective, they've been able to work them out in out of conference play so that they can be at their best in conference. But I still feel like we're still going to have to wait and see a little bit. This may be one of those. It could be one of those situations where they end up beating up each other, and it opens up the door outside the conference. And I'm definitely not trying to say by bringing this up. And it's something that definitely caught my interest, and I've been following it since I've seen them talking about it in their conference chat. There are still there's still teams outside of this conference that at this point in time are in a good spot if we're just talking about the CFP spot. You've got Central Michigan. They're clearly not out the running. The Mountain West, the top of that conference, you have a couple of teams that could say, hey, look at me. We'll have to see what happens with Florida International. Maybe someone else rises in Conference USA. Maybe there's someone else. It could be Northern Illinois or someone else that throws their hat in the MAC. We'll have to see, and we can't rule out potentially, like especially if you see teams start to cannibal. Oh God, I can't talk today. Beat each other. Washington State is still just kind of sitting out there. They're ranked. No one's really talking about them. They do have some big games coming up, especially the Apple Cup. They could be one of those teams that while everyone else is just beating on each other, Washington State is just, quietly just walking in the back door. It could be a Conference USA team. It could be someone else in the American that we don't even know about yet. I just find it really interesting that the Sun Belt, off the top of my head, I can't say outside of that season with the American that I've seen a team or seen a conference have collectively have so much success out of conference. Like, wow, these conference games will be fun to watch. I know that for sure, but just watching them out of conference, like collectively as a group, they've been very impressive. So this one to give them, I'm just going to skip my shout out now. I'm giving my shout out because the coach shout out later on. I was going to give it to Razorback and the Sun Belt one Razorback for being the positive energy in the conference chat and promoting his guys. But collectively, Sunbelt has a good group of guys, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching that race and see how it pans out at the end of the season. But now we can turn our attention to Block 3, and we've got some pretty interesting games coming up this block. The first one, of course, we're talking about the Sunbelt. Why not start with the Sunbelt, right? A really interesting game and one that I think will catch my attention when I see it pop up in the live stream is Southern Miss at Clemson. Clemson has had a rough last 48 hours, and Southern Miss is off to a good start, 3-1. And this is a big out of conference game. Obviously, talking about that, Southern Miss a chance to help boost the stock in the Sun Belt and help their season out, proving to 4-1. If they can get a win in Clemson, a really tough loss to Syracuse. And now you have to wonder how will they respond after that loss. So Doc, I'll come to you first. Who do you think wins this game and why?
I think Clemson's going to bounce back and win this game. But with that being said, I think it's going to be pretty close, and Southern Miss is going to give him all he can take.
Vic?
Ah, I'm gonna say Clemson by 14, but Southern Miss is gonna keep it close in the first half for sure.
I think this is going to be a scary game for Southern Miss. I'll be honest with you guys. I would much rather play a team that is coming off a win. So even if like, because you know what they say, there's the when you win, it kind of hides some of the bad things that happen because, like, well, we won the game, so maybe you don't go over this as much in practice. I'm talking about real life. It is kind of like, well, we won. It's not as big a deal. It doesn't become a big deal until you lose. Facing Clemson coming off of a loss, I think, is the worst case scenario for Southern Miss coming into this game. I was looking at this game like kind of on the radar, and then I saw Clemson lost, and now they're at home. I feel like this is a game that Clemson's going to come out pissed. They've had not had the start to the season that they wanted. That loss, I think, was like looking back at the game, was a loss that they're probably like Syracuse played well. When you look at it from your perspective, you're going to be like, that's a game that we made mistakes that helped contribute to that loss. And I think this is a game where they come out and say, we have to fix that now going forward. It's more of a big game for Clemson, but I think Southern Miss gets caught as collateral in this. I think Clemson is going to win this game, and I think they're going to win it big. I think this is like Clemson. This is a must-win game for Clemson, and they're going to come out and play their best football at the expense of Southern Miss. And we will stay in the Sun Belt. Before I do say that, though, I will say for you, Chip, I see your question in the chat. It's split pretty evenly. So you've got they're going to be battling against each other, but there's no, in terms of the big dogs, because of the divisions, it's going to be a battle on each side. So it's going to be fun to watch. So no loading up. I think I can't remember who it was. It was the season before Marion, I think, where it was like kind of loaded on one side, and then the other side had a team that won the division that was, I want to say they had a losing record overall, or like were right at 500. And then you see on the other side, the two Louisiana teams were like 10-2 and 11-1, something like that. Not going to be the case this time. And one of those games is coming up this block. That's going to be Georgia Southern at James Madison. A big, big game in the Sun Belt that could have implications in the East Division. Kind of sucks that you see it right away as you jump into conference play, but hey, if you're going to jump in full force. So this is an important game for James Madison. They're coming off that big win against South Florida, and they're looking to keep the momentum going in season 2 for Glizzy. Georgia Southern, yeah, they had a tough loss to Virginia, but they have looked good so far this season, and it looks like MGR is confident and comfortable with what he's got going on at Georgia Southern. So I'll start with you, Doc. Who do you have winning this game and why?
James Madison, I just think, you know, the MGR's kind of, he stuttered a little bit in the last game. He's at James Madison. I would be really surprised if he does win this game. I think it will be close, but I think James Madison is the team to beat right now, and on that side of the league. And I think that if Georgia Southern can get their offense going, it's gonna be a good game. If their offense looks the way it looked in their last game, that's going to be devastating for them. But it's almost like a must win for Georgia Southern with a loss already. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. But I'm going with James Madison.
All right, Vic, same question for you.
I'm going to go with James Madison. I feel like it's going to be a close game throughout. It's going to be one of those 4 to 6 point victories, but I got James Madison closing out. I feel like Glizzy has his hold on the whole team, and MGR just quite doesn't have that yet, but he's going to be a tough out regardless. And this is one of those key games in the Fun Belt that we were talking about here just a minute ago that will sort itself out. And this game will be a part of the sorting out. But I have James Madison winning.
Ah, man, I feel bad for picking against MGR because I picked MGR. I believe I picked him to win the division to get to the conference championship game, and I'm having
You
as
did.
It's not a 180, but and it's not even the loss to Virginia. It's the way that James Madison looked in the game against USF. There was a kind of a point. You have, when you're playing through a game, you have those teetering points where things could really go off and just fall off a cliff very fast. And to watch the way that Glizzy was able to constantly rebound where it looked like El Jefe was going to take the bull by the horns and just take control of the game, for him to find a way to say, no, we're not going away, come out with the win. The advantage being at home, the advantage being that he knows his team better, as this is his second season with the team. I like the way that he's playing football on both sides of the ball. I mean, defense, we know, is the tougher thing, the tougher side of the ball to play on, but the key stat is turnover. Even if you're giving up yards, even if you're giving up points, the way to win games defensively is to get the ball. If they're able to create turnovers, I like their chances. I think they will, and I think they win a close one score game. It's going to be a fun one. I'm definitely looking forward to watching this one. Also, this block, we've got a
Well,
interesting.
before we do this game, I'm in a chat with Shark, and he just finished a 15 overtime NDL game. It was
Oh
What?
my god.
35-35 at the end of regulation, and he lost
Oh
60
my
to
god.
58.
I need you to say that again. I heard
Oh
you,
my
but I need you to
god.
say it again because that's
Oh, oh,
insane.
So he said, I got done with a 15 overtime
oh
NDL
my
game, and
god.
I really hate this game now. It was 35-35, end of regulation, lost 60 to 58. I'm looking up to who he played, but man, that is
God.
crazy.
W-
God.
Wow. Just wow. That's some breaking
God.
news right there. Man,
So I'm
Wow.
guessing, oh my gosh, I'm guessing he played Mark.
yeah, so I see the live chat. So
Goddamn Wyoming.
so I'm gonna read what
well,
Rain said in the
well,
live
you know
chat.
what you're in for now. You
Yep,
know what
Yeah.
you're in for now.
your pain continues, sir.
Yep, 16 overtimes.
Wow.
16 overtimes for Colorado State versus Wyoming. Bucket.
Jeepers, creepers.
So I'm looking at the
Bucket.
live chat right now. So Rain said, because he's like trying to count it. So he said they both. Um, I'm just reading directly what he said. He said game of the year. This is insane, and I agree because now I'm definitely going. I'm definitely going to watch this after we're done. Um,
Got to.
said they
Got
both
to
they
now.
both threw interceptions in the first overtime. They both um so they scored four times each or straight. Both got six and missed a 2-point conversion. Made both 2-point conversions in the seventh. Both got bad spots in the eighth where they didn't get it. And then it was one in the ninth.
Wow.
That's
Oh,
just insane.
crazy. That has to be fucking crazy.
My heart goes out. For one, my heart goes out to both of them for playing that game because I know that had to be super stressful, especially when you get into just being 2-point conversions. And two, my heart goes out to KY Shark. That is a brutal game to lose. That to me,
Yeah.
that's the equivalent of going like 16 or 17 innings in baseball and losing.
Yeah.
Like it's so gut wrenching because there gets a point where you're just like, I don't even care if I win. I want the game to end. But really deep down inside, you're like, no, if I'm still in this at this point, I have to end this with a win. Someone has to lose. That is brutal.
And
I
I kind
feel
of
go ahead, go ahead.
I just feel bad for him because I beat him on the last drive of the game, and he loses to Wyoming this way, and then He loses to Alabama. Like I feel bad for him. You know what I mean? Because he has a team that probably should be beating Colorado State and Wyoming, and he's good enough to beat both of us. And for some reason, it just wasn't in the cards. I mean, he was on the road. I mean, he was at home for both of these games against myself and Wyoming. So I kind of feel for him here. Like, man. And he wins on the road at Nevada. And that just, ouch. That hurts, man. That is brutal.
That is so.
Absolutely brutal.
Not gonna lie, I don't know what to say to that.
I
Mark
That's
is a
mean,
very depressing.
nine
Mark
nine
is
overtimes. It's
Mark is the Davy of
ridiculous.
Davy and Goliath. That's like, God damn that guy. Like, he just ruins people's nights.
Seasons at this point.
We
Seasons.
love you, Mark, but you
Yeah.
ruin people's nights.
Well,
Unbelievable.
there is one thing that we could probably take solace in for KY Sharp, and I'm just gonna make a public, service announcement for him. This is a brutal loss. We're here for you in chat if you need to vent it out. But no, at the end of the season, there is a place that you can go where you can be fixed. There is a place that you can go where you will be welcome. You'll feel like a community, and they'll help you get through this.
That's right.
The Mountain West
We're very
Rehab
welcoming there.
Program. They're here for you.
Rehab program.
No beds. No beds.
Oh man,
No beds, but very comfy couches.
I don't. I think we should just run through the rest of these games because man,
Yeah.
what is there to say after 9 overtimes? Like, how does one function after the seventh overtime? Like
It's just crazy.
Man,
that.
that is brutal.
That is insane.
Well, um, yeah, I don't know where to go from here. I guess we go back to the game. Um, hopefully no overtimes like this. We have New Mexico State in a rivalry game against New Mexico.
It might. You never know. It might.
Please don't. Please don't. New Mexico is at home. They are coached by Outlaw, New Mexico State, a very familiar vet to some, Mr. Old Schooler. New Mexico is the home team. Who do you guys have winning this game and why? Doc, I'll start with you.
I have New Mexico. I think Outlaw's just playing really good with them. And, and that's but I'll talk about, why a little bit more, but when we get into the best bet for block 3. But I just think that he's even in his losses, he's played well, and I think that this is going to be a big game for him, and I think that he's gonna get this win.
Yeah, just before you go, Vic, just for the record, both teams are looking for their first win. New Mexico State's 0-2. New Mexico is 0-3. So, Vic,
0-3.
who do you have winning and why?
I got New Mexico winning. I'm part of the reason why he's 0-3. I am sorry about that. Forgive me, please. Um, but I do have New Mexico get winning. He does have a sense of what he wants to do on offense and defense. It's just all about executing. And I feel like he's gonna execute against a rival, and he's gonna execute against a team uh, against New Mexico State. New Mexico State is a different animal than a UCLA or somebody like that who may have a little bit more speed or whatnot there. It'd be the same level of speed between those two teams. So I definitely give New Mexico the nod.
Yeah, we look at the schedule, look at New Mexico. You have UConn, a team that loves to run the ball, and they did. Washington State, a team that loves to pass the ball, and they did. And UCLA, a Power Four team, and that was a rough game on the road. We faced a little bit of everything. This is really it's tough when you're looking for your first win in a rivalry game because you're hoping to have some momentum going in. I think you can still say even with the no, even with a 28-point loss, you look at the 2-point loss to Washington State as an opportunity to say, hey, we show that like we're close, we can find a way to make this happen. Being at home, I think will help push them over in this case. I know Old School and knows New Mexico State well. I think this will be a really fun game to watch. It'll be tightly contested, but I think New Mexico gets the win here and they get on the board first this season. Up next, we go to Conference USA. We have Western Kentucky at Delaware. Western Kentucky off to a 2-1 start this season. Delaware looking for their first win of the season. Delaware is at home. Doc, who do you have winning and why?
I think Western Kentucky is going to win this one, and it's not even going to be close. I think, like, you had Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky was one of the teams that I thought about drafting. I think their offense is just so good at that level. You know what I mean? And I don't think Delaware has a chance. That's you know I think offensively, defensively, Western Kentucky isn't the greatest, but I think that it has enough defense that it will stop Delaware, and Western Kentucky will get that win.
I missed that offense. Vic, go ahead.
I know you do. I'm gonna agree with Doc. It's Western Kentucky. Not gonna give you any details other than they Delaware might get 35. Not gonna lie. Other than that, that's about it.
I This is a tough matchup for Delaware because of the defense. Western Kentucky just has so much speed on the offensive side of the ball. It's tough. It's tough to keep up with them. Like Delaware is just they are at home, so that will help some. But I just feel like the matchup of their offense or their defense against the Western Kentucky offense is such a bad matchup for them. It's going to be hard. They'd have to slow the game down and try to, make it a slog and one of those grimy, ugly games. But I'm not sure that Western Kentucky is going to fall into the trap. So I have the Hilltoppers winning this one. And then we get another P4 versus G5 matchup. This should be an interesting one. We've got San Jose State and Coach Jokers looking for a P4 win as he is undefeated. Stanford, fewer games played, but also undefeated. They're at home. Doc, who do you have winning and why?
Oh, I I see San Jose State winning this if this is at San Jose State. I just it being at Stanford, I think that just might be too much for San Jose State, but I wouldn't be surprised if San Jose State wins.
What's gonna be too much? The trees? They don't got
Well,
no home field advantage.
no, but you don't. It's still a bigger school, and like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they win, but I'm going with the home field for this game.
No, no offense to Coach Jet, because Coach Jet can pull this one out. It's not him. I'm just speaking real life for a second. Like I said, it has nothing to do with him or the virtual Stanford. But Stanford is damn near a G5 team in real life. Like, no. San Jose, State has about as equal as talent as Stanford does on the game. I think Jokers are going to pull away with the victory. I think it's going to be a 7 to 10 point victory because I do believe in Coach Jed, and NDL is a little bit different from real life, so they do have a little bit of talent at Stanford. I don't think home field advantage matters at all because it's Stanford. Um, but I think San Jose is going to pull out with the victory. The past game has been efficient for him, and I look for that to continue against Stanford. Plus, this is a rivalry game. This is definitely a rivalry game, so it counts just a little bit more. So I got Jokers pulling this one out.
I think this is a deceptively sneaky game. I think this will be really interesting. Watching Jet with Liberty, he was a coach that in the land of G5, where it felt like it was impossible to get a stop, he was able to find those and find those. I don't want to say consistently, but definitely consistently more than other coaches were. So the user skills and his ability to force the 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 tempo to be what he wants to play at will be key. Joker's wants to score points. That offense, his offensive scheme, he wants to get you in a track meet and force you to play at that speed. Jet, he can, from what we've seen in the past. We'll have to see, more of a bigger sample size with Stanford and in the P4 world. But he has done a good job so far in the NDL of being able to dictate terms and pace and the the tempo and slowing the game down and make it more of a lower scoring game. That to me is the difference in this game. I feel if this game is played where you're fighting to get to 20, 25 points, I feel Stanford is going to pull out the win. If it turns into a track meet, I think Joker's is going to win. In this game, I do think that Stanford, the home field advantage may not be a huge end all be all, but it might just factor in one or two plays. And if those are key plays, I think that works in Stanford's favor. I think Stanford's going to get a one score win in this one. It should be a good game if it's shaping up the way it is in my mind. And then lastly, another deceptive game, and deceptive, I can explain why, is Marshall at Washington State. So Washington State right now is ranked and undefeated. Marshall is looking for their first one of the season. But what time do we find that Jeff plays his best football? It's when basketball season is over. The closer we get to that, the better the version of Jeff we get. They have had I can't remember if it was 2 seasons ago. I was trying to look it up. Either 2 or 3 seasons ago, where they had a game that went down to where I don't think it was last season. Maybe I stand corrected. But I feel like it was this. It feel like it was 2 seasons ago that Hawaii was driving with the ball late, and they score a touchdown. They win the game, and Lick got an interception to seal the deal. So they've played each other a handful of times, the ties in the Mountain West and the Pac, and continuing to play. So they're familiar with each other's gameplay. Doc, who do you see winning this one and why?
Yeah, boy. Um, I think Jeff's going to win this one. I think that he is, like you said, he plays like pretty close, so they are familiar with each other and they have close games. I think Marshall has enough to win this game, so I'm going to go with Marshall.
Okay.
Well, I got. I'm gonna go with Tim because of everything that has happened this week. He's gonna challenge that turmoil of everything that happened this week and put it on the field, and I think he's gonna get the win. That passing attack by Ikakis. I want to say that's his last name. That pass attack of Washington State is very lethal, especially when you have inferior defense like Marshall. Uh, Jeff Daddy is definitely gonna make it close because their games are more than not always equally close. But I have Washington State winning this.
I have Washington State winning as well, and I think when it comes to familiarity, one thing that tends to get forgotten sometimes is you understand what the other coach may want to do in situations, and it can become a very fun chess match. But the other thing is it familiarity when you know your roster while doing that versus trying to learn a new roster while doing that? So while he may have, no, maybe in this situation, Lick is going to run this. Maybe in this situation, if I come out in this, Lick will respond this way. But you're still, if this was Jeff at Hawaii, I might feel a little differently. I think I would still have Washington State. I think the score would be closer. But I think because Jeff is taking on a new team and Marshall, he's still learning what works and what doesn't work with them. I think this works into Washington State's advantage. I think that offense ultimately will be too much, and I think they're going to pull away in the second half and pick up a solid win. Well, speaking of solid, what is not solid, and I can say this with 100%, is my NDL sharp balance, and I almost feel bad for even recommending anything for this next segment. So you may just want to pick against me. I'm just going to be honest. There's no reason to lie to you guys. So with that said, we were looking through block 3 for things that we thought were our best bets. Doc, you can go first. What is your best bet, block 3?
I took New Mexico minus 3.5. I think that Allies played everybody tough so far, and I think that he can survive that 3.5 against New Mexico.
All right, Vic.
I took Tulsa plus 4.5. I think Tulsa is, upset minded, and I think they're gonna try to pull the upset. Sammy.
It's funny because I see Chip say, he says New Mexico 3.5 is free money. And you know what's funny? That was the first bet that I thought about making, and I hesitated because I have no confidence in myself right now. I honestly feel like I I feel like I don't even want to say anything, but I have to because I'm obligated to. So I looked at, and I don't even, I'm going to be honest with you, until I win, I don't even feel confident. I took South Alabama plus 3.5 against Utah State. Both teams are off to slow starts this season, but I just feel that South Alabama's a winning record. They're off to a slow start. Defensively, they're off to slow starts, but I think this is a opportunity for South Alabama on the road against Utah State to try to get in a rhythm as they go forward in the season. And I think this is one of those opportunities where they can present that. I think I'm too scared to do money line, but I'll take the 3.5 points. That's where I'm
So,
at right now.
so I usually have my account to make our bets, and with all three of those, Tulsa plus 4.5 over Memphis, Alabama plus 3.5 versus Utah State, and New Mexico minus 3.5 over New Mexico State. That is a total parlay of plus 561. So if you were to bet 100 NDL bucks, you would win 661. So I'm going to place that bet right now, and that bet has now been placed. So you guys go ahead and bet responsibly. Don't run out of all your coins, and hopefully we can get some winners this week.
I hope so. I'm holding us back. That said, that said, the scariest bet for block three, the one that definitely made you cringe when you looked at it. Doc, what do you got for this one?
It was Nevada at Fresno, 2.5. Like, I just, the game, both teams are giving up over 140 points. So it might be a shootout. Um, but I'm with you on that. Just the game in general. I would stay away from this game. I don't know if they're going to score 65.5. The under on that would be the safe one, but um, that's probably with the way they offenses score, they don't do very well. And so I would just totally stay away from this game on all areas of it because who knows with their defenses, they may hit 65. With their offense, they may not even come close to it. So I would just stay away from this game in general in all areas of betting.
Yeah, before you go, Vic, I'm gonna double down on that because I thought the under was scary because I like you look for trends in a team and I would this is one of those games where I'm looking at the I'm looking at the defense and like, yeah, this could be a game that turned into a shootout, like because the defenses have been giving up points left and right. But because I'm going to say that they're going to do this, this is the game where the offense figures, hey, we can run the ball effectively and slow the game down. Thus, the point total comes down, and they score exactly right at the line, so you lose money. So I just figure, let's just stay away from this altogether. So I'm in agreement with you on that one. I don't want anything to do with this game. Vic, what about you?
Well, mine's is in the Power Four. I know we do a lot of G5s, but it wasn't a lot of G5 representation out right now. The block isn't open yet. So, once the block opens, we'll have more bits. But I took something from the Power Four, and that is the big spread of 24.5 of Utah. Now, thinking as a gambler, and not thinking as, who's going to win and blah, blah, blah. You know, MC made it 35 Weasel. Weasel is my guy. Don't take that personal at all. MC is just like that, especially with Utah. That's why he wanted Utah low key. Um, he thought about a G5 team, but after playing a couple scrimmages with Utah, he was back in love with them. And you see how that worked out for yours truly and others. So I think Weasel is going to be one of those on the hit list, especially as you know, through the live chat, they go back and forth. So this one's just as the SEC
Excuse me.
as the SEC says, it just means more. This one just means more to MC. So he might do this, but as a gambler, you typically stay away from big spreads because if you go with MC, then some bullshit happens. And it tends to favor, Weasel, and then he loses, Weasel loses by 14 or by 7 or something like that. And then you're like, well, what the hell happened? EA happened. That's what happened. And so to drown that all out, I'll just say stay away from that game entirely, or just bet the money line in a parlay. Or you can bet the total over on the points because I know that's gonna go above 63, I believe it is 63 and a half.
Oh,
You
we know it
can
at
bet
least will be
those of those.
35 with Weasel's defense. So that's a
Yeah,
lock at
yeah,
35. That's your floor. So the
yeah,
question is how
pretty
many
much.
more points are they scoring?
Oh,
Not
oh,
saying they'll
he's
get
scoring at
35,
least
but
50.
yeah.
Utah is at least scoring 50. They're at least scoring 50. So I would just stay away from that. That's just a gambler's mind frame of it. You can take it if you want, but that's just the gambler's mind frame over. You see big spreads and you kind of be like, oh, I don't know about that. So that's the scariest bet that's on the board right now.
Two things. One, all love Weasel. Please don't take it out of me in baseball. Two, I 1,000,000% agree with you when it comes to big lines for this, or big spreads, because um those college football spreads, those college basketball spreads, man, they just have a way of just pissing you off. I've seen it happen so much. Like, just looking at stuff, like, I marked it as something that I would have been interested in, and then I'll follow up on it later to see what the final score was. I'm like, see, if I would have did it, I would have lost. Hurt so much. Maybe in the future we'll get alternative spreads. We can drop that number down some. Just, different
Oh,
odds.
hopefully we do start having alternative spreads. That'd be great, especially for me. That'd be great because that is how I hit. I hit off alternative spreads. So, um, perfect example of stay away and big spreads is Duke last night was 10.5 favorites over Florida State. They only won by 1 point.
Hmm,
Florida State is like 19-14 or 18-14 on the season. Duke only has like 2 or 3 losses on the whole season. So there you go. Some bullshit can happen. And it typically does when that's the last leg of the parlay to hit is that big spread. So, you know, you might want to take the money line on the total points, but stay away from the spread.
agreed. Agreed. I don't have anything more to add to that. Preseason, or not preseason, their current Power Five rankings for the G5. Doc, we'll start with you. What do you have, sir?
The power rankings, I got Boise, Hawaii, James Madison, Washington State, and Florida International. I had a hard time picking between Florida International, Central Michigan, San Jose State. So I went with Florida International. So I'm sure some of those will change next week, but that's kind of that last spot for me was the hardest spot.
Okay, Mr. Vic.
I have um, ULM, no particular order. It's not a 1 through 5, but I have ULM, Hawaii, Boise, James Madison, and San Jose State. FIU hasn't played that many games, and of course USF drops out because of record, and I dropped Central Michigan out for the time being, but they will come back in.
Okay. And then for mine, I have Boise, James Madison, FIU, Central Michigan, San Jose State. For me, Florida National is still there. I'll wait until we reconvene next episode, and I think I'll have a better idea of where they stand. But for me, it's just like how I do my polls. I am pretty lenient if a team is a little bit behind. If it's, a trend going forward, then I'll drop them. But I'm like, I can hold you for a little bit here. Just let me see what happens, and within the next week of play. And I usually make a side note. I know you can look at the side and see, what they've played since the last poll, but I usually make a side note so I'm aware that they are catching up. So I factor that into, if they do, if they don't, where they stand in my ranking. And Central Michigan, I have them at 4, even though I know they lost to Bama. But like I said, you can have ugly wins and pretty losses. I do believe in that, and it never makes you feel good to lose. But watching what I saw from that game, I still took a lot from it. So I did not dock them as much as maybe some other coaches would for that game. And then my honorable mention is Georgia Southern. So I think that game against James Madison will be very telling on what my top five looks like next. And then I'll ask each of you, which coach do you think in the G5 has the most to gain this block? Doc, I'll start with you.
Hawaii. I think if he can get a couple more wins, I think that really cements him as being one of the top G5 schools. And, you know, he's got, I think he just plays Air Force this week, and then he still has to play Washington State. So if he can figure out a way to win these two games, 5-0 going into what the 4 block, that's pretty impressive. And to have a win, like if he does that, it's a win over Washington State, is the big win there. So like I said, I just think that he has the most to gain with the two games that he has to complete this block.
All right, Vic.
I'm gonna go with Boise. They haven't really played a game this block, so um, the previous block and this block will be important for them. I feel like they can definitely get into the CFP race down the line, but I feel like this is going to be a big, huge block for them.
It will, because there is one game that we did not talk about. But to answer your question, Chip, they have one game this block. I know IROC is out of town right now on a work trip, but when he comes back this block, he's got one game, and that is against Notre Dame. So a lot definitely can be gained with the win against the Fighting Irish and RB. For me, this block, I think San Jose State has the most to gain. I think you're undefeated, and usually being undefeated will get some attention, but it's being able to stay that way and look. I don't want to say necessarily look good in terms of style points, but just like, hey, like with him being an offensive coach, getting in a rhythm and keeping that going. He's put up 38 and 42 so far. He's got Stanford and New Mexico. If he can come out of this block 4-0, like the Stanford game to me is an important one because Jet, I think, is one of those coaches that we look at when you go from the power or the G5 to the power four. What does it look like? We won't know that answer for him until the end of the season. But I know that he's a coach that I'm looking at that made that jump. So I'm watching to see how he does in this game. So I think this could be a really impactful game for Jokers if he can come out of this block being 4-0. That win against Stanford could be something that is hopeful later on in the season. We'll have to see. And now for the shout outs. I already gave my shout out to the Sun Belt and Razorback. Doc, who's your shout out headed to this week?
Hawaii being 4-0. I mean, the biggest sandbagger himself. If you talk to him, he'd be 0-4 by now. Maybe 0-5, but he's played just like everybody thought he would play, and it's gonna be fun to watch that team to see how they do for the season.
All right, Vic. Or not Vic. We can come back to Vic. But I can
Oh
answer.
no, I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm sorry.
Okay,
It
you're
it
good.
was Coach Ant Rains of Bowling Green. He is 2-1 in the Beefy Cup, and he did just get a win over Middle Tennessee State. So shout out to you.
All right. And I'll answer a question for Chip. I was going to type it in the stream chat, but I'll just answer it live. So Chip asked a question. Who did Boise play? Totally missed them on my poll for you guys to have them as a top five G5 team. So I can give you insight into why I have them in the top five. My top five. I did at the beginning, and they are undefeated, so they haven't for me, they haven't lost any ground yet until they start losing some games. Do I if I were to and it's going to sound probably counterproductive here, but if you ask me to take resumes right now and pick a representative for the G5, would I pick them? I don't think I would. But for me personally, I'm not worried about that until the end of the season. I know we have so much more to go through. I'm just looking at for me personally, I had them in my top five. They haven't lost, and because they haven't lost, I haven't dropped them. And I, to this point in the season, the gap that I had for probably my top six teams, I don't think teams coming from the bottom have done enough yet to jump over. So that's my answer for you. That may not be a great answer, but that's my answer for you. I'm a slider with the polls. I move people up and down as opposed to starting over. But when we get to the last poll, because I have the full resume in front of me, then I'll take everything into account. That is the one that I usually tend to blow up and start, okay. If I was a CFP guy, this is where I would start to rank teams. Thankfully, I'm not in the CFP, and thankfully, I've also dodged Smitty, so I don't have to worry about that. That said, Doc, you have your G5 awards watch. I hand the floor over to
Yep.
you.
Yep. I will. Give me 1 second to find where I was. Sorry. All right. So I got Zevi Eckhouse, quarterback, Washington State, 809 yards, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception for quarterback rating at 241.8. Michael Alado from Hawaii, 1,205 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 185.6 quarterback rating. Byron Brown, 1,337 yards, 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 209.5 quarterback rating. From USF and from Temple, Evan Simmons, 1,256 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions for 179.5 quarterback rating. And what I found interesting as I was going through this, no running backs stood out and no wide receivers really stood out. So that I found that to be very interesting, and no defensive players as well. It seems like everybody is spreading the ball out, and nobody's really getting all those rushing yards that you know we saw last year in the G5. So looks like it's the quarterback's year this year in the G5.
I really hope El Jefe is not listening to this after that James Madison game. Oh, those broken tackles. Oh my goodness, on both sides. It was
Yeah, that was crazy.
man. It is kind of nice to see we had a little bit of a shift here. We'll have to see if the season finishes out that way for sure.
Yeah.
All right, Vic. Ball knower fact. Do you have one for us, sir?
Ball no, yes I do. I have a ball no effect. Since it's spring football season in full effect, I have a spring football what if. One of the greatest what ifs of all time. There was once in the spring of '96, I was once a Hall of Fame receiver. He enrolled at a certain team. And if he would have stayed on this certain team instead of having some legal trouble, that by far would have created one of the greatest dynasties of all time, in my opinion. Do you want to guess the wide receiver that I'm talking about?
Mm.
Your hint is the position. I said the position. That's your hint.
I'm kind of stuck on the legal because my first thought was Randy Moss, and I still know what he did with Marshall. And oh my God, oh my God. I don't. I'm not sure I have another guess at that time because the only other
Okay, yeah,
receiver
I
I
mean
could
you can
think
go
of
with
is
that.
the only other.
You can go with that guess if you want to. Doc, do you have a
Yeah,
guess on
I'd
who
have to
the
go with
Hall of
Moss.
Fame wide receiver is?
I have no idea. Chris Carter. He seemed to
No,
always
no,
be in trouble.
it's not Chris Carter.
He had enough
Sammy is
trouble.
actually right on this one for a
Wow.
change.
Wow, I got something
It
right. Yes.
Where'd he go?
it was Randy Moss in the spring of '96. He enrolled at Florida State, and if he would have stayed there, he would have paired up with Chris Winkie and Peter Ward.
Oh my
Just
God.
think of that '97 team.
Oh my God.
That
Him and Rourke out
'97
there.
team. That '97 team would have kicked off something great because that '97 team would have had Lavernius Coles, Peter Ward, and Randy Moss on the same team with Chris Winkie as the QB. I believe that was his freshman year. Um, and then we would have won a title, and then would have played for one like we did again in '98, and then won a title in '99, and then played for another one in 2000. So that would have kicked off one of the great dynasties of all time if he hadn't ran into legal trouble. But he did, and he got kicked off before the fall and went to Marshall, still did great things and still had a Hall of Fame career.
I want to
On
add
a on,
two things.
on a go ahead. I'm gonna let you add those.
No,
Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you go first because I have mine. The last thing I
No, no,
want to
no, no,
ask a
no, no, no.
question.
No. You go ahead. You go ahead. It was gonna be something totally different for a second, but go ahead.
Okay. Um, One, I can say as someone that got to watch him play in the division when Tampa Bay was still in the NFC Central before the expansion. I have never had fear for any offensive player, any. And I know who has been in the division with the Bucks, and I'm emphasizing any. I have never feared anyone more on the field than Randy Moss at any time a touchdown.
Well, you wasn't really watching when Barry was Barry, but
I was still getting into football. He's actually my first favorite player, even though I was a Bucks fan. He was really exciting to watch. And I was scared of Barry too, but Moss was just it felt like you were it was just something different with Moss. And it was just I just can't put it in words. The second thing that I wanted to ask you guys is because based on that answer, my dad is a Vikings fan. I played my dad in at least 1,000 football games over the course of my life, and he has been the one player that has given me more hell than any player in video game football, whether it's Madden, whether it's 2K, it did not matter. I got extremely annoyed with him at times. It was frustrating, it was depressing. So I wanted to ask you guys, who is that one player for you? It doesn't even have to be football. If you want to keep it college football, you can. But who is the one player for you that had that impact and effect on you where it's like, oh my God, not this guy again?
Wow, that's a good question.
it is a good question.
And chat, if any of you guys want to chime in, you're more than welcome to. Like I said, it doesn't have to be college football. It can be,
And
whatever sport.
um, yeah, Drew Brees in like Madden 11 was OP. I'll say that. Drew Brees in like Madden 11, Madden 12. I forgot which one he was on the cover of, but the one he was on the cover of, he was OP. He was just straight OP. had 60 something speed, but could outrun D ends. It was crazy. He was OP.
Hmm. You maybe have a second guy too, or was that just the one and
The
only?
only other ones, when somebody used to pick those USC teams back in the NCAA 04, 05 days.
Pat, uh, Mr. Bush,
Ray Lewis for
Oh,
me.
oh yeah.
Ray Lewis. Huh.
I can
That's a name that I don't hear too often, which is kind of crazy. 'Cause I mean, I know it's a Hall of Famer. Man, I'm sure
Yeah,
Ray probably
man.
popped up with those random, like when you had to, when you absolutely didn't have to, when you didn't need it to happen, force a fumble.
yeah,
Oh, I see
just
some.
usering them and things of that nature. Like he was just the way he stopped the run in those games, and he was just a monster.
I won't argue that. I want to say NFL 2K2 was because 2K1 was more offensive. 2K2 leaned a little more towards defense. I remember playing against the Ravens, and it felt like anytime you got hit by was you had Ray Lewis and Peter Boulware at
Yeah,
linebacker, and then you had Ed Reed. If any one of those three touched you, automatic drop. There was no catch in traffic, no matter who the receiver was. If they touched you, it was a drop. So
yeah. And the other one was Warren Sapp. Can never run on Tampa Bay.
that's music to my ears. Wish he
He
played
was
like
so
that
good.
when I was using him. Okay. Anyone else you want to add, Vic? And then I'll tell you guys what chat is offering up to.
Oh no, you can go ahead and go to the chat.
All right. So chat Chip says Durant in 2K is his. He also adds in college football NCAA '07 Mike Hart. Tim says Braylon Edwards, which now that he brings that up, I'm starting to have flashbacks of that. And yes, I agree with that. Um, Big Brian says Vince Young, and that is one. I'm We'll say one. It's kind of crazy because I feel like the answer that most people give, and I was hoping that no one would say him so we get some other people. I feel like the one answer I always hear is Michael Vick. But I'm
Oh yeah, for
lucky
sure.
because as a Buccaneer fan, I had the defensive weapons to help not stop him. I felt like it was like playing against Shaq. He could go for 30, but I felt like I had a way of being able to limit him from completely just destroying the game. But Tampa Bay had, you had Simeon Rice and Derrick Brooks. Those are plus sap up the middle. Like that's not something a lot of defenses had at that time. And with that speed, it made it a little easier to slow them down. One other that I like to offer for NCAA is Adrian Peterson. And honestly, you can take him over to Madden too. Like I know Noah Hefe talks about his love for Maffa as a Clemson fan. Um, Maffa looks like a child video game wise compared to the things I've seen Peterson do to me and to other people. Adrian Peterson drove me nuts. There's really no other way to put it. Probably the one running back that has given me the most headaches in video game football. But for me, Moss was that dude. It's like I felt like walking on the field playing the Vikings. I assumed I was already down 14 nothing. I gave Moss two touchdowns in my head. When they happen, it's like, okay, we just have to try to do our best to keep it at two. But I know 14 points because just that random bomb is coming, and it doesn't matter who's back there, even if you're ready for it, it's still going to be caught. All right, before we sign off, I asked you guys, do you have anything you would like to say, closing wise?
Just get your games played, and I know y'all seen the clip of Travis Etienne today with the Saints talking about his name. Um, a lot of people were saying that he was saying Etienne, but I just said how he wants kind of how he wants it to be said, and I can see how the ETN and HEN got mixed up.
Gotcha, gotcha. Doc,
I just want to say that I'm going to bed tonight feeling a lot of pain and sorrow for Shark. That's that's all I want to say.
I I second that. That I didn't even have anything to say, but I 100, 1000 second that. Man, that's such a brutal way to lose. Cool that that could go down as the greatest game in NDL history, and we actually have a stream of it now, so that could be archived in the NDL Hall of Fame. Man, that is such a tough way to lose. But KY, just remember, if you still feel this way in a month, in 2 months, there is a place for you. They can help you.